The International Relations Department has confirmed in a statement that the U.S. ambassador to South Africa, Ruben Brigitte, apologized for alleging that the country sold weapons to Russia to use in the war against Ukraine. The father of Thabo Bester, who is accused number 3 in the Thabo Bester saga, speaks exclusively to the SABC. And it's a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on SABC News Channel. This is the Week in Review. We're joining you from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. I'm Tsepiso Umakwetla, looking at some of the big stories of the week, what has been making headlines and getting South Africans talking. Here's a look at some of those stories. Now, one of the top stories this week, we've seen the president's special envoy sent to the United States, and he's now due to brief the media shortly. Dr. Esidimeni Inquest led the special envoys that met various stakeholders on an exchange of ideas and information in the United States. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation also releasing a statement last night saying the U.S. ambassador to South Africa, Ruben Brigitte, has admitted to crossing the line and apologized unreservedly after his comments that South Africa supplied arms to Russia. Ambassador Brigitte was yesterday asked to explain his conduct after DERCO spokesperson KZN said the government expressed its utter displeasure at the ambassador's statements. Earlier on, I spoke to Mbulelo Rakwena, who is South Africa's former ambassador to Brazil and other countries. I started by asking him what he makes of the diplomatic spat.
It's a shock because for an ambassador of Ambassador Brigitte's stature to make a diplomatic blunder such as this is rather surprising. This is a person who has been at the high level, served at the high level of the diplomatic functions. His last posting, if I'm not mistaken, was ambassador or permanent representative of the United States of America to the AU. He has been Assistant Secretary of State. So for someone of such an accomplished diplomatic standing, someone who is an academic and intellectual, such as his CV tells us, it is rather very difficult to think of him just having made a minor mistake. It is shocking, to say the least.
Would he have done this on his own accord? Would he have received the go-ahead? Would he have had to consult before speaking out of turn, as it's now being characterized?
You see, a diplomatic blunder, it's when you speak out of turn. It is when you are not prepared and caught in the moment and are fully not conscious of what the consequences may be. In this particular case, I do not think it is such. Clearly, Ambassador had a very prepared text that he invited people to listen to. He had set opinions that he wanted to communicate. He clearly had done his work, and using his own words, he is prepared to die on his own sword in reflection of how correct he is on the allegations that he was making. Now, those allegations notwithstanding, he should know better that that's not how you communicate with what you seek to have as a friendly state. So it would be fair for those who would think of a possibility of that he did not do this just as a mere accident, but rather as a design. What the design is meant to achieve, this is what we have to speculate on. It is curious that this happens at a time that South Africa is just on the verge of hosting the BRICS summit. Whether this is calculated to undermine South Africa as a sovereign state that could possibly much in line with history to host one of the most fundamental shifting, geopolitical shifting paradigm to the rest of the global politics. I'm not sure whether that is not
so. Ambassador Rakwena, we'll come back to the significance of the BRICS summit, but I want to follow up on what you said, that the Ambassador Bridget has said he'd fall on his sword in terms of the information that he disseminated. There's now the statement by the Department of International Relations on Corporations that says the ambassador apologized unreservedly. Do you believe the apology has to do with the substance of what he said, or rather the manner in which he said it?
Well, Sepiso, look at it this way. The damage is done, isn't it? One of the immediate things that seem to have happened is you had the rand tumbling down to such unforeseen levels before, piercing the 19 rands level. Now, how do you take that back? Surely you would have calculated as to this is a statement that would not have the interest of the two nations only, but it would have a global impact on those that are interested in the geopolitical conflict that is involving what you call Ukraine as well as Russia. So I don't know about the apology, how genuine it is, and whether we should be taking it at face value that the ambassador has now realized the gravity of his mistake.
All right. Now,
I think we should go a little bit beyond that.
So let's go beyond that. You mentioned the fact that South Africa is going to be hosting BRICS, which is a very important summit. We know that there is talk about other nations possibly joining BRICS, very powerful nations just in terms of the kind of resources that they have. And there's also the issue of the US dollar losing its supremacy as a currency. Would it be that calculated, that undermining of South Africa's role in this historic moment, as you suggested?
Well, it is not beyond the realm of possibilities that South Africa is seen as one of those countries that are going to usher in a moment in history that will basically define a new world where your unipolar world will crumble to its knees, because we see more and more a propensity of a number of countries beginning to debate issues around what is the value of being dictated to by one particular country, who order world trade in terms of the power that it has in terms of the currency that is being used. That debate is gaining currency. That debate is beginning to say to a number of countries, should it be that when we have oil, should it be that when we have gold, should it be that we have real and tangible commodities that could actually give credit or give currency to give currency to the transactional currency that we might want to use? Should we have to be subjected to the usage of the dollar? And if more and more of the countries, right now as we speak, 19, I'm told, I cannot say this for a fact, 19 of the countries that are not in BRICS have expressed interest to be part of the BRICS dialogue. Now, that dialogue very well stands the tremendous moment of being able to define how things in the next post-BRICS environment may look like. Now, that is not necessarily in the favor of the United States of America in terms of domination of global trade.
All right.
If these countries come together, you are going to have a preponderance amassing of GDP that far undermines that of the United States of America. And to that extent, I wonder whether this is not part of a calculated move to undermine South Africa's credibility in global political order.
And that's Ambassador Mbulelo Rakwena on the diplomatic spat between the US and South Africa over the alleged sale of arms to Russia. Now, in other news, the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa will today engage with structures of the party's biggest region, eThekwini. The party's National Working Committee is engaging with all 11 regions of the organization across the province. SABC News reporter Samgele Masego and video journalist Kwazi Manzi are covering the story. They join us now. Samgele, a very good afternoon to you. Quite an interesting meeting happening there. The heavyweights of the ANC meeting with the provincial leadership. Just give us a sense of what is really pressing at this point. We know that there have been various governance challenges and a scandal recently over the feeding scheme.
Indeed, Tepi. So the main thrust of the bone of contention for the ANC in engaging with the structures of all 11 regions of KwaZulu-Natal is mainly premised around the issue of governance and service delivery. You look at the feeding scheme, the nutrition scheme that was bumbled by the provincial government, in particular the Department of Education, which prompted the Minister of Basic Education, Angie Motshekga, and the National Executive Committee of the ANC to come to the fore to deliberate on this particular matter. You've got the President of the ANC, the National Working Committee across all 11 regions of the party. I want to bring in Mamloko Kubai to just essentially speak on the essence of the NEC being here, the National Working Committee rather. Kubai, the essence of the President being here, what is currently happening behind closed doors in this engagement with the ANC's biggest region, eThekwini?
No, thank you, Samkele. The issue here is that as NWC, we took a decision to visit all provinces. This is our second province. We've been to Limpopo. Now we are here in KwaZulu-Natal. The aim is to strengthen our structures. We are doing evaluation in terms of performance of our structures. Do we have structures that are in place properly? Do we have the organization functioning? Checking on service delivery and engaging with our structures to hear feedback in how things need to be and how things are going in the regions. You'd understand that one of the issues that as conference we were mandated to doing as the NEC is to also ensure that there are stronger structures across. We don't want to wait late. You find that there are no structures by the time you want to go and battle in terms of the elections. You have no structures to be on the ground to battle elections for. So that's part of the issue, but also pay attention to governance issues. So it's not only about internal matters of the ANC, but also focuses on where there are problems, get feedback from our branches who are interacting with communities, and they are leading within these communities to say what are the areas that we must pay attention to so that we can be able to respond to the mandate that citizens has given us.
When you look at the issue of governance in this municipality, you had Belinda Scott as the deputy mayor after you fired Zandile Kumete as the mayor of this municipality, saying that you are trying to turn around the situation here. When you look at the issues of service delivery, in particular in eThekwini municipality, it's still deplorable. Just a few weeks ago, you were in one of the informal settlements in Ispingo, which those informal dwellings had burnt down through a fire. How are you going about in addressing the leadership deficiencies and maladministration in this specific municipality?
Look, the issue around the performance and functioning of the municipality as in eThekwini, I don't think it's completely off. I can say that. You do have Troika now. Yes, we know the coalition government have now proven that they are a bit unstable, not only here, even in other provinces where you have Johannesburg, you've got Ekurhuleni, you do see those instability in terms of coalition government. You'd know that here we were in coalition with ABC. Now in terms of even for human settlement, you had Mavundla, he's left. So those things, because of the challenges of coalition, we are growing to learn how they function as a country, is something that we do not know as a territory. It's better when you have a municipality that has been 100% won by you. You have control, you can also hold accountable. Here it's about a balance where you've got to do trade-offs to make sure that the municipality functions effectively. We've been here, yes, as we say, I've been here to deal with the Dakota fires. We're able to respond together, working together with the municipality. We're able to respond within a short space of time to be able to get the lives as we committed back on track. But the issue of informal settlements within eThekwini remains a concern for me as Minister of Human Settlements. governance to be able to deal with them and be able to respond. That's why in terms of monitoring of our grants, we continue to be able to look into that. So part of the conversation today as well will be able to say, do we have the right people with the right skills within eThekwini? We look at the report that the Secretary of the region is presenting to say how is the municipality. So we don't look only, as I said, with the structures. We look at, is the municipality having the technical capacity to be able to assist us to respond, which currently that's one of the things, the reports that will be presented to us as NWC together with the president here. And then out of that, the NWC will meet tomorrow with the PEC to do a reflection on what we have been able to find, and if there are interventions that we need to do, we'll do those interventions later.
Does those interventions mean changing the troika of this specific municipality at a particular stage, knowing that you've just brought in the former Director General in the presidency, Cassius Lubisi, brought in Mike Sutcliffe, who's a former city manager of this city, which performed optimally during his tenure as the city manager?
The issue of the bringing of the intervention is more on a technical level, to be able to ensure that those projects that needs to be delivered are delivered. Where there are challenges, you always be able to intervene. I think we support this, especially even from human settlement. You understand, last time I spoke about Nelson Mandela Bay, where we had challenges of delivery. We sent an intervention team there, though we didn't do it through the section that Minister MEC has done in the province, but we have been doing interventions in municipalities where they're not functioning, and it's from a technical point of view, not in terms of political leadership or executive leadership. So the current intervention is not to replace the troika, it's the technical team that is going to support to ensure that we have service delivery happening, because there's the feedback that we need to improve in terms of the service delivery.
What is the essence, as I ask you the last question, of what you are getting inside the venue? Are there rumblings of divisions and tensions amongst those whom are leading this particular region and particularly this province?
No, actually, the spirit inside the meeting is quite unified. You'd have had people singing in one unison. You don't have different songs that you'd hear. And from where I'm sitting, I don't see any divisions that are visible in the meeting. We see a region that everybody is here to listen to what we have to say and also give us feedback. So I don't have that sense of divisions where I'm sitting from outside and what is happening inside.
Will you be disbanding this province come the NWC recommendation on Monday for your ordinary NWC meeting?
I think the Secretary General spoke to this matter. We don't visit provinces to disband. We visit to go and strengthen and ensure that there's functioning of the organization. But the Secretary General can speak better on that matter.
But is this province strong?
I think the Secretary General will give a report after we've done an assessment. I'm not a deployee in KwaZulu-Natal. I came here as an NWC to focus on eThekwini, so I can't give it. It will not be an objective assessment when I talk about the province, when there are 11 regions, and I'm just here not even 2 hours into the meeting, so it will be really not objective at all.
Will the President be addressing this meeting, or will he also be addressing the various deployees and councils, such as councillors?
The President will address, once the report is there, we'll take questions from structures. The President will address and respond to some of the issues that the structures are raising. Then in the afternoon, we'll have a meeting with all deployees that are deployed in eThekwini.
Thank you very much, Mamloko Kubai, who is an ANC's National Working Committee member, speaking on the essence of their visit, saying that they're not only going to be meeting the branches and the alliance of the ANC, which is the meeting currently taking place, but they will also later in the afternoon be meeting with all of their deployees in government, which are the councillors of this specific struggling metro municipality led by the ANC-led coalition, voting with the economic freedom fighters.
Thank you very much for that update, and of course we'll come back to you at a later stage here on the channel for more on that meeting of the top leadership of the ANC and the provincial leadership of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, to look at other political stories that made news this week, joining us to help unpack some of these stories is political analyst Sandile Swana. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Mr. Swana. I'd like to start with what is happening in KwaZulu-Natal at the moment. We saw Mamloko Kubai try and give a diplomatic response to just how deep the problems are and whether or not there is hope for the KwaZulu-Natal leadership, provincial leadership, one of the things that it's accused of is of interfering in the business of the provincial cabinet, a cabinet meeting not taking place because the provincial leadership wanted to be kept up to date on the agenda. What are your thoughts of how deep the fissures are of leadership in that province?
It is clear that thanks Sepiso and to your viewers, let's say that it is clear that the divisions are deep. When you start to have a situation where the provincial political ANC leadership is asking for agendas to be pre-approved by themselves, they don't trust their deployees. There are factions in the province. And we've seen that some people have been unceremoniously removed from that cabinet, et cetera, et cetera. So there are divisions. And those divisions are also still within the ANC, also in the manner that you start to see who gets sent to go and provide intervention in those provinces, such as KZN.
And KwaZulu-Natal having the biggest numbers in terms of membership, how significant is this particular meeting and the outcome thereof on the road to 2024?
The size of the membership of the ANC, unfortunately, is not a sign of how strong the ANC is relative to its competition. The information that we have now is that out of 12 by-elections that have taken place in KZN, the ANC only won 4. So give or take, they have a 33% success rate and a very big failure rate at this present moment in time in KZN. That on its own could have warranted the sending of a delegation to KZN because the IFP and the DA, together with their allies, appear to be able to beat the ANC and are aggressively attacking strongholds of the ANC and winning in the process of winning.
Speaking of public trust, I'd like to look back at what we saw earlier on in the week, the question and answer session by the President in Parliament dealing with myriad factors, but central to which was the issue of energy. And of course, there was the issue of the diplomatic spat between South Africa and the US. How satisfactorily do you think the President was able to answer some of these questions? Was he able to convince the public on the handling thereof?
His slow approach this time on the question of the USA making accusations against South Africa in many ways has actually been vindicated and proved to be helpful rather than jumping to other conclusions. Because for all practical purposes, the confidence with which the ambassador of the United States of America made the allegation whittled overnight when pressed by our Minister of International Relations, Naledi Pandor, and basically admitted that he made false impressions to the public about what had happened here. So Cyril Ramaphosa does not need to say anything further. I mean, to me, the matter ends there. So that one, although at the time may have looked suspicious, but within a matter of days, it proved that his answer was prudent. On the ESCOM issues, there is one big issue at ESCOM, regardless of the many others, is on which date is load shedding going to end? All the answers that he gives do not tell us when this load shedding is going to be arrested, first of all, so that it doesn't increase. Secondly, when it is going to end. He doesn't seem to have a credible plan around that issue, certainly. The other issues about crime, including the crime involving his cabinet ministers, the intervention in KZN, for instance, right now by some of his people, shows that when you hear or see in the newspapers that things are going wrong somewhere in your structures and so on, you intervene. You don't wait for the police to come and give you a final report or a court decision. So his answer on the names of the ministers who are implicated, who are diverting resources from their proper purposes at ESCOM, his response is inadequate, because as a leader, he should use other processes other than the criminal procedure to actually address any misconduct or misdirection of resources at a crucial time such as this.
All right. And finally, there's the visit by the Deputy President of Colombia, Francia Marquez, who met with the Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Paul Mashatile. Looking at the bilateral relations between the two countries, because it said that there's a lot virtually untapped in terms of opportunities for South Africa and Colombia. What commercial opportunities are there that we should be exploiting through these talks?
Yes, obviously, I mean, we need to just say that Colombia has an unfortunate history of drug dealing, but in reality, they are also a normal country like us. The majority of the people are not drug dealers. So they would be able to assist us with agriculture and agriculture, they are strong in that, manufacturing, and a few other sectors. But more importantly, they are coming at a time when the left has won power in Colombia. People who have been over time allies of the African National Congress and active members of the Global South. So they are going to crisscross Africa, trying to see how they can assist with a continent-wide Africa free trade agreement. So that is exactly like any other country, whether it is Ukraine, Russia, or any other country. We need to be focusing on trade opportunities more than anything else. And this is one of those.
Just very quickly, Mr. Swana, we saw the heads of arguments tabled by President Cyril Ramaphosa against the private prosecution by former President Jacob Zuma. And former President Jacob Zuma believes that this application to interdict that should not be entertained because President Cyril Ramaphosa has various other avenues that he could follow. What are your thoughts on where this will end up? I know the matter goes to court on the 17th and 18th of May. What do you foresee unfolding?
My view of this entire matter is that President Jacob Zuma is probably backing up the wrong tree. And I don't think it is going to achieve much success. I don't think so.
All right. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights with us. Much appreciated. Political analyst Mr. Sandile Swana just speaking to us about some of the major stories of the week, giving his political analysis. Right, we're going to take a quick break. We are back again with more news, this time to look at what happened with regards to the Life Esidimeni Inquest. Welcome back to the Week in Review as we take a look at some of the major stories of the week. Now, the Life Esidimeni Inquest at the High Court in Pretoria has been adjourned to Tuesday, the 23rd of May. This as former Gauteng Health MEC Qedani Mahlangu concluded her testimony. She maintains she was misled by senior officials reporting to her and apologized to the families of the Esidimeni victims. Former Finance MEC Barbara Creasy will testify next, while the former Gauteng Premier David Makhura will also be subpoenaed to testify. About 144 mentally ill patients died during their relocation to ill-equipped and unlicensed NGOs.
Of the termination.
Judge Tefo announced that the inquiry will be seeking the testimonies of former Gauteng Premier David Makhura and Barbara Creasy, who was the finance MEC then. She says that their testimonies are crucial for the inquest. Qedani Mahlangu pointed a finger at both of them and testified that Makhura and Creasy knew everything that was happening in the health department and the decision to terminate the contract.
Because the names of the following people have been constantly mentioned in these proceedings, the court has decided to call them to come and testify concerning the issues raised about them. These are the names: Mr. David Makhura, Ms. Barbara Creasy, and Professor Robertson.
In her testimony of 2018 at the Esidimeni arbitration hearing, chaired by retired Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke, Barbara Creasy refuted Mahlangu's version of events and said there had been sufficient funding to keep Esidimeni open. She says all they wanted was the department to close down non-core services.
I believe she will have to be subpoenaed. There will have to be a subpoena issued for Ms. Creasy as well as for Ms. David Makura. I will arrange for the subpoenas to be issued and given to the investigating officer.
All affected family members want is for the political heads to tell the truth and be held accountable.
I'm not sure what else will come out of Makura and Creasy and well, I know for Dr. Leslie Robertson. She's a very ethical individual. We've met her throughout this process. I know she's going to tell the truth.
Lobby group AfriForum's Private Prosecutions Unit, which represents some of the affected families, want Makura to be held accountable.
Solidariteit Helpende Hand and AfriForum are representing some of the families affected by the Life Esidimeni tragedy. We are following this inquest with interest. We are glad that the former Gauteng Premier David Makura, as well as the former Finance MEC Barbara Creasy, will be testifying, because everyone involved must be held accountable.
Creasy's office has confirmed that she's ready to appear and testify before the inquest. Nozintombi Mia, SABC News.
Right, Nozintombi Mia, SABC News reporter who's been following that story, joins us now to talk about this. Nozintombi, thank you very much for taking the time. It's been a long week and heaps of information to sift through. I want to talk about what were the highlights, particularly with regards to the exchange with the former Health MEC Katani Mahlangu, George Mkhari? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tsepiso. You know what? It really, really was quite a grueling week for her. She was grilled. You know, there were points where she got so emotional, where she couldn't actually speak, and the judge had to intervene and tell her to calm down and think rationally about what she was going to say before she said something that would further implicate her or put her in even more trouble than she already is. And specifically with George Mkhari's cross-examination, that was a cross-examination that was quite, it really rubbed her the wrong way, and she was extremely emotional Monday, Tuesday when he was cross-examining her. And I think with him, what he wanted to get from her was to get an idea from her as to what responsibility she is willing to take in the entire tragedy that took place. And his criticism of her under cross-examination was that she's pointing fingers at this person, that person, next person, the Premier, the MEC of Finance at the time, her HODs at the time, her senior staff, the NGOs that were ill-equipped except for herself. She tried so hard to exonerate herself and paint a picture of herself as just a political head of the Department of Health at the time. There was a point where even in her testimony under cross-examination where she said her role there was to be a political head, and she appointed people who had the expertise, she used the word expertise, to run those specified areas. She then later in the week said that she now feels that she was misled by her star group of senior managers that had the expertise to deal with these issues. And she says she doesn't know if they misled her intentionally or they misled her unintentionally. So there were no admissions from her. It was a serious grilling with Advocate George Mkhari. And George Mkhari is actually representing currently the current Premier of Gauteng, as well as the current Department of Health in Gauteng as it stands, with the current political heads or the current heads as they are. So obviously they want to make sure that, he wants to make sure that there is no mud that sticks to the offices of those, and rather she, in her management decision, her decision-making is held responsible for the decisions that she took. So those are the two big takeouts from Monday and Tuesday.
So it's very interesting, and I did actually hear that part of the testimony, which was at pains to say that as the health MEC, it would be inconceivable that she would know every little thing that happens. She did not have the time to do that. But I find that quite alarming for a political head. She bears some responsibility, I believe, in terms of an accounting officer. So the issue of the budget and how it just expanded exponentially. Take us through her rationale of how things got so out of hand.
So the lawyer, the advocate who's representing several of the NGOs, advocate Thabo Bester, went in quite deeply with the budget, and the way she explained it, because she actually still has the access to the reports, and she explained that in the financial year of 2012-2013, the budget for 12 NGOs, Life Esidimeni was one of the 12 NGOs included in that budget, was between about 100 million and 150 million. From about 2013-2014, that budget almost doubled, from about 150 million to about close to 250 million. So by 2024, early 2024, this is when the Provincial Budget Committee, which was chaired by then Premier Mr. David Makhura, as well as then MEC for Finance, Barbara Creasy, raised red flags and called the department heads to come in and have a meeting about why their budget had increased, why the expenditure had doubled in less than a year, and what the problems were, what the challenges were, because it obviously showed that there would have been a problem if 2 years ago or a year before you were able to have an expenditure of 100 million. It makes no sense why that would double to almost 300 million.
So, as you said, she was in for a very hard grilling. At the end of it, does she take responsibility? Because you mentioned in your report at some point that she did break down. Did she say she bears some kind of responsibility?
It was a hard admission for her, but I think on Thursday evening, and this was at the point where almost everybody had been quite exhausted, and she was being led in a re-examination by her lawyer, advocate Jonathan Hodes, and he asked her, is there anything you would like to say to this commission before we close with the re-examination? And she said, I want to apologize to the families of the Esidimeni tragedy for her part in the tragedy that led to the deaths of 144 people. And she said that while she bears some responsibility, again, she wanted to call her executive, the then Premier, as well as the then MEC. And this is as much as she has made an admission of some level of culpability, hindsight is 2020, but it shows the systematic endemic problems that we have within our departments, especially provincial departments, where red flags are raised by senior ranking officers such as the Premier or the Finance Department, and all the different departments don't speak to each other to find lasting solutions to help the most vulnerable of the people in society who rely on those services. Instead, it now becomes posturing. It becomes about political interference. It becomes about who has more political clout, who has more power, who has more access. And this is exactly what happened with Esidimeni. She went to the PBC. They said she needs to cut the budget. She went back to her heads of department. They came up with strategies. The PBC, she responded back to the PBC, and they said, this is simply not good enough. You need to do more. That's where the wheels fell off from the cart.
All right. Nozintombi, let's leave it there. Thank you very much, my colleague Nozintombi Mia, who's been covering that inquest into Life Esidimeni, speaking about how the former health MEC, Katani Mahlangu, was questioned and her responses to it. Now, still on health matters, the Minister, Dr. Joe Phaahla, has urged the public not to panic over the outbreak of mumps in the country. The National Institute for Communicable Diseases confirmed the outbreak after a sharp increase in positive Mumps cases were recorded in 3 provinces. Most of the positive cases were in children between the ages of 4 and 9. Patla says government is working on increasing immunization to tackle the outbreak. He was speaking at the main nurses celebration at Polosong Hospital in Tsakani, Ekurhuleni yesterday.
Up to so far, it's not severe. I mean, up to so far, it's only in 3 provinces. I believe I know it was Gauteng, KZN. I'm trying to just recall which was the 3rd province. So it's still low at this stage. And I might also just indicate that mumps ordinarily, unless somebody has other complications, it's not a fatal disease. It can be managed, but at this stage we are still monitoring. It's still not a very, it's not something which we can regard as severe, but we are going to be monitoring over every day.
In other news, the father of Thabo Bester, who is accused number 3 in the Thabo Bester saga, says he's shocked by revelations in court that his son confessed to his involvement in the escape of convicted Facebook rapist and murderer Thabo Bester. Sebata says he's baffled about hearing the investigating officer who took the stand in opposing his son's bail application, testifying that Thabo was promised 2.5 million rands and paid 40,000 rand of that to aid the prison break. The police officer also told the court that Thabo had placed the body, which was used as a decoy in the escape plot, after it was brought onto the prison premises in a trolley dustbin and took it to the section where Bester's cell was. SABC News senior reporter Criselda Lewis and cameraman Tulo Monare sat down with Dipolo's senior in this exclusive interview since these details emerged.
How did you feel about the arrest of your son? I was shocked because my son is not the type of person to get himself in trouble. I'm asking myself what happened. I'm hurt. I don't know what to say. I've lost. Those are my feelings. His mother is also sick. I don't know what to do. It's like my son has died. Only God knows. I love my son. Whatever happened, I cannot undo. Only he knows what's happening, and he hasn't told me anything.
Everything
The investigating officer has told the court, Ntate Dipolo, that your son contacted police and basically confessed about his alleged involvement in the escape plot, and also revealed the names of some of his colleagues that were allegedly part of the plan to get Thabo Bester out of jail. How do you feel about hearing of that testimony?
before
I don't know how he arrived at the point of confession to police before even telling me as his father. What was his intention? I know him as Thabo, my son.
So now I'm going to traumatized.
I'm traumatized. I'm hurt. It's like nothing will be okay again. I don't even think God has the power to fix what is happening.
I think Modimo ha ke gone o ka ba le yona power ya o bankanya di dinge di ka kala ngona no. Ke part ya everyone e ka motakela.
Is this just bad luck? Did I not raise my son well? Where he is, he knows I love him. I wouldn't have let him do those things.
I don't know. But I'm sure why he's doing that. I can't do like I'm little snacks.
Pulo, the investigating officer also says that your son, after the body was taken inside the prison, which was later found in Thabo Bester's cell, they say he was responsible by putting this body in a bin trolley and pushed it into a dark room where it basically stayed and was later taken into Bester's cell where it was burnt. Do you believe your son is capable of that?
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe my son is a good man. That guy is a good man.
But the state doesn't believe so.
I don't believe. Maybe that guy, man, I think that guy was drunk, man. I said I didn't get one get him. Never.
It's not something that my son would do. Unless they tell me my son is on drugs, then I will believe it. I don't believe these things that they're saying my son did. It cannot be that my son is referred to as a beast.
I'm very shocked, man. I can't do baby do take a pill go better than one I got to take over the down. No, man. No, man. I am no, man. I can't this is unfortunate no, man. That secret.
I didn't raise him to make me suffer. He was very secretive when I lived with him. But this is the first time I hear of these things in court. In my eyes, he's a good man. But now I hear these bad things.
He's very good. But after that, where is that man?
Daddy, the state says that he confessed. He is the one that phoned the police. And he met with the police. He said that he fears for his life. And he told them about his alleged involvement and that of his colleagues. That's what the state says. Your son calls the police.
Yeah, obedience police are thing. I'm very sure. I know that. But as
I know he called the police, but I didn't know he called them regarding this big case. All I knew was that there was a problem at work. I can't believe it now. I'm afraid of him. How can I live with him?
But now this one, I can't. I can't believe that. I'm tired of myself. I shall never trust him again.
Did your son tell you when he lost his job?
Next.
He never told me he was fired. All I know is that he was on leave.
All the time that guy asked him was panicking, we tell him leave.
Do you know anything about the monies that he received? Because they say that there was an amount of money that was first deposited into his wife's account, and then the remainder of the money was deposited into his account. They basically say that your son had received 40,000 rand. I don't know about that. So you don't believe what the state is saying? I don't even believe what my son is saying. Why would he then implicate himself? Because he called the police, according to the investigating officer. He said that he feared for his life.
What?
He felt that he would be a target. You don't believe that?
For what? From there.
What was he a target for? What was he hoping to gain? Did he not think about what would happen? I don't even know about that 40,000 rand.
I get even the cent. Over that 40,000, I get even the cent. Still in pay, I need advance pay.
Have you seen your son since his arrest?
Next.
Did you attempt to go and visit him?
Next. I
last saw him when he was going to meet with the police. I can't even go into court. His wife goes inside and she briefs me. I cannot face him. I'm scared of him.
All the time, report. Because I can't talk
Ndate, do you believe that your son had a hand in the escape of Thabo Bester from prison?
I can't say yes or no.
The police say he's confessed, as I've indicated, but do you believe it as his father?
I can't say yes or no because I get to me no one. That's why I'm saying there's something wrong. I want to see him personally. That's why
I do hope that he gets bail.
All the time. My son might come here and sit there. He must tell me what's going on. Because I don't trust him anymore.
In an emotional interview with our colleagues Crisalda Lewis and video journalist there, Tulo Monare. Now, in the Senzo Meyiwa trial, it's been said that he would have still been alive had he been rushed to hospital shortly after being shot by intruders 9 years ago. That's according to Advocate Zandile Mshololo, representing accused number 5 in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. In her cross-examination, Advocate Mshololo accused state witness Mthokozisi Twala of not calling an ambulance and police or rushing Meyiwa to hospital on that fateful night. A statement by the late Senzo Meyiwa's brother-in-law Mlungisi Edward Hlophe painted a different picture to state witness Mthokozisi Twala and Tumelo Madlala's testimonies under oath. While Twala and Madlala had testified that there were intruders who entered the Khumalo home seeking cell phones and money, Hlophe's statement quotes Tumelo Madlala saying Meyiwa was shot by mistake while trying to break up an argument between Longwe Twala and Zandi Khumalo, Kelly Khumalo's sister. And that's where we leave it for today. Have a wonderful afternoon further and do enjoy your viewing here on SABC News Channel. Until the next time, it's goodbye for now.